Prologue, Beauty in Action. Hinata Sekaguchi was bored as she sat in her personal room, assigned to her within the holy empire of Lobelia main palace. This world was just so boring. She was still 15 when she fell into this world. It was her first day of high school, the date of the official entrance ceremony, and the only reason she attended was because she didn't want to be at home. On the way back, passing by the temple she passed by every other day of the week, a sudden gale slashed across her body, so powerful she couldn't keep her eyes open. When she did finally pry her eyelids apart, she saw a new and unfamiliar landscape before her. Hinata liked it. Now, she thought, she was finally free of her mother, who had gotten into religion and never gave a second thought to her family since. Her father had long ago disappeared, so sure it was only a matter of time before he'd hit it big at the horse races, only to find nothing but massive debt at the end. Unable to bear the violent episodes that inevitably followed, her mother escaped into her faith. All this after Hinata tried so hard to kill her father so her mother could enjoy the life insurance payoff. Just a little while longer, and it would have all been in the family bank account. She made sure nobody would suspect a thing. All she needed was for her father to disappear. Thinking about it, though, she came to the realization that pulling this off right would require her to commit other murders. She'd have to kill the religious officials who associated with her mother, and sooner or later, she'd likely have to take her own mother's life. That was the result of Hinata's cool-headed analysis, and that, more than anything, was why she didn't want to be home. Here, at least, she wouldn't have to kill anyone else. Or so she thought, before some men surrounded her. Hey, there's another one here. Whoa! Another young girl, eh? Sweet. Hey, nobody's gonna know if we have a lil taste before selling her, will they? Oh. So it's the same thing here. To her, the world was filled with nothing but despair. A world filled with the ugly, the repulsive. A world that should just be destroyed already. I will take from them. I will let them take nothing from me. Confirmed. Unique skill usurper, successfully obtained. I am in the right. My calculations are flawless, for the world is eternally unchanging. Confirmed. Unique skill measurer, successfully obtained. Suddenly, her vantage point was clear. The fog lifted from her heart, sharpening her mind. If the men in front of me want to take from me, let me take from them first. Take their lives. Then the massacre began. Hinata didn't even need 5 whole minutes to kill 3 men with her own 2 hands. She was freshly awakened to her skills and not exceptionally gifted with muscular strength, but that was all it took. Those were the first murders she committed in this world. Hinata did have people close to her, but she could never believe in them. They were too weak to trust. She felt she might kill them with her own hands sometime. So she left their side. The killings continued, and with them came knowledge and technical skill. She used those newfound talents as a foundation to become a strongman, one of the rulers of the world. Days passed. And then Hinata found him. The one god she was truly qualified to serve. Gods actually exist in this world. She could no longer remember how many she'd killed. Good people, bad people, it didn't matter to Hinata, for everyone was equal before her god. She continued to fight, never questioning the orders of the one she served. Monsters, too. The orders were absolute, and her god refused to tolerate the monster's existence. Thus, with her unchallenged force, she eliminated her god's enemies. The little girl was no longer there. Now, she was the right hand of her god. She held the title of Paladin, Chief Knight of the Imperial Guard, answering directly to the Holy Emperor, and she bore beauty worthy of the title. A title that made her the nemesis of all monsters. Then she was visited by terrible news. Shizue Izawa, her teacher and mentor, was dead. The only person in this world who showed Hinata any kindness. There were no sentimental memories, no hatred. No name for the emotions that flew in and out of her soul. I can't forgive this. How could some monster do that? Her boring days at the palace were over. An icy smile cracked across her beautiful, almost saintly face, and she sprang into action. Chapter 1, Trading with the Beast Kingdom. I could see a bunch of children playing around outside. 3 boys and 2 girls. They ran up to me at first sight, overjoyed to see me. "Teacher! What are we gonna do today?" they all asked, their eyes shining. A determined-looking boy, a timid-looking boy, a reticent-looking boy, a lively-looking girl, and a wise-looking girl. They were all my students, and I doted upon them. Today, however, my emotions were a churning mix of happiness, sadness, and loneliness. "Well," I said to them, "that's a good question. What should we do?" This was my regular life until a bit ago. A life I myself threw away, one that would never return. But these are her memories, aren't they? Not mine. The lingering attachments of Shizu, back during her instructor days. I could tell, from my viewpoint, that she didn't want these kids to be involved in her strife. But perhaps they felt abandoned. Perhaps they cried. But even if they didn't, it was all so. Also what? What was I trying to? And then my eyes opened. Please. Those children. Those children? The ones in the dream? Please, rescue those children. Rescue? What on earth from? There was nobody to answer. She wanted to have me do something. That much was clear. But that was it. No more words, as her voice plunged into the darkness and disappeared. The remains of the dream faded away in my mind, the plaintive request left deserted and unnoticed. This felt like the first dream I had in a while. Ever since I became a slime, which by definition never slept, the only chance for dreams was during emergencies like exhausting my magical force. It didn't feel right to me at all, so I forced myself to engage in periods of inactivity on a daily basis, working hard to laze around, in a way. If it sounds like a contradiction, it isn't. Giving oneself time to relax is never a bad thing, and there's no pain in working hard for some goal you have. And all that effort paid off. For short periods of time, at least, I could let go of my consciousness and achieve a state of sheer serenity. The experiment worked, in other words. I forgot what the dream was about, but that wasn't important. That's kind of what dreams are anyway. Now I can live my days in sheer laziness. What sort of nonsense are you going on about, Sir Rimuru? She was angry. Shuna's smile never faltered when she was angry. That's what made it so terrifying. Blithely following Shuna's lead, I crawled out of bed, grumbling to myself. I'd be busy during the day. Battle training with Hakura was on the schedule, as was an inspection trip to see how construction was proceeding. You'd think there was no harm in kicking back a little at night. I had just wrapped up analyzing and assessing the skills I took from Charybdis, so there were no major unaddressed issues left to tackle. By the way, Charybdis gave me magic interference and control gravity, both extra skills. Magic interference, paired with control particles, resulted in the new extra skill control magic, which, when associated with multi-layer barrier, gave a pretty hefty boost to my defenses. Magical attacks were nothing to worry about now that, along with the resist magic skill I picked up from Gabble and the rest of the freshly evolved Dragonets, meant I could withstand well near any direct magical strike. Of course, I had Glutton on me, so I could already consume and neutralize any magic attack I could identify, but still, this new stuff could protect me from ambushes and surprise attacks, and that was huge. As for control gravity, well, my research into it certainly paid off. I had always felt it a pity I couldn't capture Gelmud's flight magic, but control gravity very elegantly solved that problem. I didn't even need to chant a spell in advance. High-speed flight was now mine, in any shape or form I wanted it. This time, I didn't rush things. I hadn't forgotten the failures I ran into on the way to stumbling upon water pressure propulsion. Trying out whatever jumped into your imagination was a surefire ticket to some seriously unfunny situations. So I took it easy, spending every evening examining my skills. I started by lifting myself into the air and practicing some low-speed flight. I could control my trajectory with my wings to some extent, which helped me pick up the knack more easily than I thought. Now, I didn't even need the wings. Multi-layer barrier even protected me against wind resistance. I bet I could break the sound barrier before long with this. But no rush. I just keep up the slow, steady practice. As I thought all this over, Shuna gave me an exasperated sigh. Sir Rimuru, you're being inattentive again. You will be seeing off my brother Benimaru and Sir Rigger today. I want you to focus on being the most majestic figure you can for the big farewell. Oh yeah, that was today. Sure thing. Ah, yes. Benimaru and crew were heading off today. Several months had passed after Malim's departure. Several calm, chill, and very peaceful months. I was busy as always, but still, extremely chill. One day, though, a messenger appeared from Caroline, the Beast Master and one of the land's demon lords. I hadn't forged an official agreement with him on paper, but it appeared Caroline was a man true to his word. As the messenger put it, let us send envoys to our respective nations, so they may see for themselves whether forging trade relations would be beneficial to both sides. I gave my immediate approval, and Caroline had already given his. Which brings us to today, the historical day of departure for our envoy mission to the Beast Kingdom of Eurasania. Benimaru, a gifted warrior and my right-hand man, would lead the envoys. For his assistant, I appointed Rigger, son of Riggard. Their mission, to travel to other nations and report what they observed, so I could figure out how to run my own country. They were accompanied by a small group of other hobgoblins, all candidates for future leadership roles in my government. They would be representatives for the Rimuru Tempest Federation, Tempest for short. Our nation. A brand new one, and thus, inexperienced in almost every way. We needed to compensate for that, and toward that end, we were all working together, putting in the maximum effort on a daily basis. It's thanks to that work ethic that I think this envoy mission to Eurasania should bear some serious fruit for us. We were also fully prepared to receive the Beast Master's own team. They'd come here, look around our nation, and, hopefully, come back with some complimentary things to say. If all goes well, we'll stay on good terms and, again, hopefully, begin formal trade and from there, formal diplomatic relations. It shouldn't take long. But that was still ahead. One step at a time. For now, I needed to focus on seeing everybody off. Awakening my conscience, I assumed human form. There was a ceremony scheduled, so I changed to some suitable formal wear. Looking back, I sort of missed the days when we had almost nothing to wear. Now, we've got almost every type of clothing you could think of. A much better selection than I ever had in my closet back in Japan. And really, in terms of the conveniences we now enjoyed in life, it was just incomparable to the early days. We solved the sugar problem, for one, so we currently had a steady supply. It helped us add stews to our cooking repertoire, and there was even a selection of candy available, albeit not a big one. At this point, now that I had mastered the art of taking short naps, I figured the next question to tackle was entertainment. But I still had a long road to travel. All these ideas kept storming into my mind, one after the other, and it made things tough. No matter how hard I worked, I never seemed to run out of new wishes and desires. There was no telling when I'd be able to sit back with a big bag of potato chips and veg out in front of my game console all day. I wasn't willing to give up on any of these goals, though. And that's why I needed this envoy team to do their best and make international trade a reality. So there I was, in our city's main square, standing in front of the crowd in my finest attire. It triggered a small, excited uproar among the monsters, in all their many species. I didn't make a habit of addressing them in human form. The cheers and shouting seemed like they'd go on forever, but a single silence from Cheyenne shushed them all in an instant. Nice one, Cheyenne. She was so good at handling these kinds of rowdy scenes. With the monsters calmed down, I decided to give my team a few encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will do your best for me. Is that it? The perplexed Shuna asked. Was that too short, maybe? My high school principal droned on so long that nobody listened to him, so I figured shorter is better for speeches like this, but maybe this crowd was more excited about what I had to say. Yeah, maybe that wasn't enough? I'll give them a little more. With that, I decided to run down the list of things I wanted my envoys to watch out for. The Beastmaster Caroline was a demon lord and certainly one of the more warlike ones. I couldn't be certain the rule of law even existed in his domain. Right, listen up. You're about to travel to a nation of magic-born who never believed in anything besides might makes right. Underestimate them at your own peril. If you let up, they'll make you do whatever they say. You might lose to them in a fight, but I want you to make damn sure you don't lose to them in heart. Remember, your companions and I are behind you all the way. Keep that in mind as you tell them about what we're seeking. If you think a fight is brewing, run away and come back. One mission here is to see if we can remain on good terms with these guys going forward. I don't need a relationship where we have to hold our noses and merely tolerate them. I want you to see matters with your own eyes and make sure we can maintain a kind, friendly rapport. I'm counting on you. The moment I wrapped it up, the square was filled with wild cheering. It was like being in some pop idols concert. What I said probably didn't matter. They were just really keen on listening to me. I'm sure the envoys themselves were paying attention, but the rest were just treating this like a big festival. Ah well. The fact they listened at all indicated a pretty well-disciplined set of monsters. That's a pretty big step for them. Might as well take this opportunity, I suppose, to give them another important warning. Let's see, what else? Well, I don't mind a mistake or two, but please don't start a fight yourselves, alright? I'm looking at you, Rimuru. Think you're up to that? My speech made the assumption that any hostilities would come from the Eurazanian side. If my team started anything, this whole expedition would be worthless. I had to hammer into them that I'd accept no mistakes along those lines. Ha! You are in good hands with us, Rimuru barked back, supremely, almost scarily, confident. I have learned quite a few lessons myself. After the days we spent with Lady Melim, any fool could understand that impudence leads to disaster. The comparisons to Melim set off alarm bells, too. Using her as a standard for building your own confidence didn't give me any sense of security at all. At least it beat Cheyenne, though. Watching her eagerly nod at Benimaru's words made me sigh. Really, I was hoping Cheyenne could watch the town as I joined this envoy, but that was just far too risky. Although, thinking about it, Benimaru was a pretty thoughtful man, despite appearances. I guess it was rude of me to compare him to Melim and Cheyenne. Good to hear. I wish I could have joined you there myself, not at all, my lord. I think it best you do not travel to a demon lord's domain until we can confirm it is safe. It was clear from that denial that Benimaru wished to gauge Carolan's trustworthiness with his own eyes. Not just Carolan, but every other magic-born who called his lands home. Would working with them benefit Tempest? Or would they cause untold harm for me? Really, I was glad to see his initiative, even though it only added to my worries. Imagining Rigor and the rest alone in a magic-born nation was a bit frightening. I needed to have some strong fighters in the group, at least to serve as bodyguards. So I was already protecting our nation from the shadows, and Hakuro was busy with military training. Guild couldn't be wrested away from his construction work, and Gabble was working hard to extract high potions and produce low potions from them. Cheyenne, of course, was out of the question, and thinking along those lines, Benimaru was the sole remaining candidate. All right. Do your best. Yes, my lord. And you, too, Rigor, and all the rest. I'd like to see good things come to our nation. Absolutely, a starry-eyed Rigor replied. We will spread the word far and wide. Those eyes told me he couldn't wait to head off. He was really leaping at the chance to try something new. He'll be fine, I figured. Rhonda, I want you to stay in Benimaru's shadow and accompany him. Keep them safe, but do not let your presence be known. I will not let you down, my master. Immediately following my orders, Rhonda slipped right into Benimaru's shadow. Benimaru's own aura was hiding him, and hopefully that'd be enough to keep him invisible on the road. Great. Now, let's give them all a big hand as they set off on their journey. On my cue, Shuna gave a signal with her eyes. It was picked up by our band of specially selected musicians, ready to strike up a great, lively tune. The envoy made their way through the watchful crowd, traveling toward a future full of hope, the hope that this stream of cultural exchange would help plant the seeds for future diplomatic ties. Our first government envoy set off with a flourish. Benimaru's team was gone, but I still had a pile of things to do. I had plans to visit human lands sooner or later, but with one job coming right after the other, there was no time for that. With anything you do, that first step you take is so incredibly essential. Cut corners at the start, and you'll often pay dearly for it later. That applies not just to work but to life itself, and certainly to kickstarting a new nation. Just because I wanted to hang with humans didn't mean I could throw everything else off for now. My top security and military leaders were gone for the time being, and I had to fill in those gaps. So I could handle security, and I appointed Hikuro as the head of our military for now. That'll leave things in good hands. Next was making arrangements to receive the contingent from Eurasania. One thing I did not want them seeing was our Hippocute grow setup and potion manufacturing plant. Everything else was safe enough for public viewing, so I decided to prioritize keeping the sealed cave just that sealed off. There was only the one entrance, and a heavy boulder or the like would close it just fine. Gabble and the rest still had the magical transport circles to travel to and fro with, so physically hiding the entrance seemed the best option. I worried that sealing it off might affect the cave's oxygen content, but there were so many ventilation holes lining the cave walls that it didn't seem like an issue. Plus, Vester had a pretty handy piece of magic to contribute. There is magic to detect changes in the air, or in the environment in general, one could say. There is also magic that alerts the caster to any threats to their lives, so I see little to worry about. There's one concern knocked down. Vester was so incredibly talented. If he didn't have such a demented personality, he'd still be using those talents as King Gazel's most trusted advisor, no doubt, but, hey, if it means he's working for me now, then I'll take it, definitely. So it was settled, no more sealed cave entrance for now. And that reminded me of something else about Vester. Besides our potion factory, I was willing to let the envoys see whatever they wanted, so I went over our assorted preparations with a fine-tooth comb. We had just constructed a guest house to receive special visitors with a fancy, luxurious hotel of sorts, not the simpler lodgings Cables and Yom's crews were assigned. And we weren't just building fancy new boxes, we were building people, too. Shuna's apprentices were growing into talented chefs. At this point, they had gained a natural instinct for just the right amount of seasoning to add. They were fully versed in managing cooking fires and chopping up ingredients. I wouldn't be embarrassed to have them handle any event at all. The Goblinas, for their part, had learned the fine art of hospitality through their practice with Cables and Yom's teams. Handling nobility would still be a tall order for them, but they were more than educated enough to take care of regular people or adventurers. For the finishing touch, I selected the best performing ones out of the lot and had them personally treat me as a guest. Given the boorish crowds we usually got around town, I wasn't too sure whether we could really provide luxe service if we tried. Vester, once more, helped a lot. As nobility himself, I figured he could school me on things I never would have thought about. His knowledge rubbed off on my selected team, who put in some of the most beautiful work you ever saw. You are doing quite well, indeed. Stay diligent, and you all will certainly grow talented enough to receive royalty from any nation without causing offense. I look forward to seeing how you advance. Thank you for your instruction, my lord, the Goblina hospitality crew said as they bowed to him. If they kept someone as high-strung as Vester happy, I thought, they must have been good. Sure, I'm glad I asked you for help, Vester. No, he replied with a cheerful laugh. This has been quite the added benefit for me. I would be happy to help any time. I presented him with a free lodging pass in exchange. He could stay whenever he liked, both enjoying the guesthouse and observing the staff to make sure they weren't slacking off. 2 birds with 1 stone. With that, I figured we were all set to keep our visitors happy. There was one more big event left. In fact, if anything, this was my favorite one of all: my official visit to the armed nation of Dworgen, the Dwarven Kingdom. My schedule was already set in stone, thanks to a couple messenger exchanges. It would be one of the most auspicious events our nations enjoyed so far, a chance to prove to both Dworgen and the world at large that we, Tempest, were an officially recognized, independent country. Having agreements signed on paper was one thing, but being physically welcomed by foreign lands like this was something I wanted to leverage for our future plans. Were people willing to accept a new nation founded by monsters? That was our biggest ongoing issue. But building up Yom to be a hero and having Fuse spread all the right kinds of rumors about it was starting to establish us in the public eye as friendly monsters, willing to lend a claw to the good guys. And now, we had an invite from a full-fledged superpower. This was the perfect opportunity to earn ourselves a ton more trust, and I couldn't let it pass. No way I could let up until this visit was successful. Visiting human realms could wait until I was sure our government was on the right track. We've got to make this succeed. Shuna and Cheyenne nodded. Of course. You are in good hands, my lord. As your secretary, I will make every effort I possibly can. Time to get to work. Summoning up all my energy, I strove to cut down every issue I could think of, waiting for the fateful day to arrive. We received a sign that our envoys were back. A sign, that is, in the form of Trainee. Kneeling before me, she reported our team was near the forest of Jura the moment she spotted them. Thanks for letting me know. Not at all. She smiled. It is no hardship for me. She was beautiful as always, what with that translucent, mystical air she had. It let her capture the heart of anyone she saw. If I weren't a slime, I'd easily fall for her, too. Oops. Staring at her too long would only make Shuna and Cheyenne all snippy. I'm a slime, totally eyeless, and they still seemed to know where I was looking. Was it some supernatural power or just their womanly intuition? Anyway, better not set off any needless conflict. Let me know if anything else comes up. Certainly. I had best be off, then. With another smile, Trainee disappeared. Here one moment, gone the next, truly one of the most mysterious women I know. Regardless, I relayed the news to everyone else that we should expect the envoy team back in a few days. Just then, Yom and his companions paid a visit to town. As I hoped, our little intrigue had established Yom as a top-of-the-heap champion around the kingdom of Pharmus. That put him in demand over there, so he was back for a chance to let his hair down for a change. He had the lofty-sounding excuse of getting a little training from Makuro, but what he really wanted was some decent grub and a soak in the hot spring. I knew because I could tell, and since he was staying for several days this time, I didn't forget to keep an eye out for any trouble he might cause. Listen, we're gonna have a party of envoys representing the demon Lord Caroline soon. Can you guys promise me you won't pick any fights with them? Ah, come on, pal, who'd you think you're talking to? You think I'm the sort of fool who'll get in a brawl with a demon lord's underlings? Yom slumped. He was right. But there was never accounting for some of the idiots running around out there. It could boggle the imagination. But why are demon lord folk coming here in the first place? He asked before I could answer his first question. One of Caroline's top officers had been instilled into the core of Charybdis, a monster who was demon lord class in itself. After an extended battle, I separated the guy from the core and saved his life, which led to this new thaw in Eurazanian relations, but Jom and his crew weren't around to see that, so they still had no idea. I hadn't gone out of my way to tell them. I wasn't sure it'd be the best thing. Ah, yes, I'd better explain. Come to my reception room once you're out of the bath. Sure thing. I suggested a time, and Cheyenne marked it down with a skillful hand. She hadn't exactly been my first choice for the position, but she was shaping up to be a half-decent secretary, after all. So how should I put it to Yom? It seemed like a good idea to give him, and him alone, the whole story. In my mind, I reasoned that I ought to give him a few choice details, the basic tale of my origins and how I'm interacting with the demon lords. Exactly how much I should divulge, I wasn't sure, but it didn't seem wise to trumpet it around to the general population. Most people would never believe I was an ex-human in the first place. In fact, maybe now would be a good chance to tell him everything. It was going to be an intense conversation, I thought, not the sort of thing you wanted to do in the middle of the street. I wanted a relaxing atmosphere for it. So that's why I told Yom to come alone to my room afterward. Now he was here out of his traveling clothes and fresh from the bath. It was just after dinner, and he was right on time. So what's the story, pal? Hey, hold your horses, I said as I offered Yom a chair, a plush leather sofa with a back and armrests. I sloshed over near a chair that faced it. First off, I want to tell you something. But promise me you won't be surprised? Surprised? Why would I be? Ignoring him, I transformed into my human shape. It takes a lot less time than any explanation would. Wah! Yeesh. I warned him and everything. It didn't help much. I told you not to be surprised, I said as I sat on the chair. As if waiting for her cue, Shuna entered the room, just as planned. She politely bowed and provided Yom and me with some drinks, a colorless liquid in a pair of glasses, both exquisitely blown from real glass by Dold, the middle of the dwarven brothers. With another bow, she took position behind me. That was my signal to raise my glass. With a sniff to ensure it was up to my standards, I addressed Yom. So how about a drink? Shocked at my metamorphosis and swooning at Shuna's touching manners, Yom was frozen in his seat. The offer of something alcoholic helped him snap out of it. Yeah. Sure, he said before downing the entire glass in one go. It immediately triggered a coughing fit. Hag. Calf. Ugh, what is that? Shuna hurried over with some water. Yom drained that glass just as quickly. After a bit more sputtering, he finally regained his composure enough to ask what the hell I just gave him. Not used to drinking spirits too often? We held a feast here a bit ago with some folks from the Dwarven Kingdom, but they were kind of disappointed at the lack of booze around this city. We had some beer and wine brought over, and they could pretty much drink that stuff like water, they never get drunk off it, they said. So I figured I'd surprise them with a little concoction I'm familiar with. That's our first test batch. And he was my first impartial test subject. Yom had bragged to me about how strong a drinker he was, so I made him my guinea pig. He had just consumed brandy, a spirit produced by distilling wine, and while I knew it was cheating, I used analyze and assess to reproduce the best-tasting brandy I could recall in my mind. The glutton unique skill was coming in handy in all kinds of ways. There exists a fine line between fermentation, which is usually a good thing, and spoilage, which isn't. With glutton's food corrosion properties under the expert control of the great sage, I could corrode food and drink without producing any harmful materials, in other words, ferment it. This would make producing things like yeast and koji starter a breeze. I had already left yeast production to Shuna, so we had all the bread we wanted, not to mention a few alcoholic beverages. Making koji from scratch was a bigger challenge, and one we were experimenting with, but it would hopefully not be long before I could enjoy some real Japanese sake again. I could make soy sauce, too, if I could get my hands on some soybeans. Such a great skill. I can't stop dreaming up new uses for it. I wasn't sure if using these jaw-dropping powers to satisfy my personal cravings was such a great idea, but who cares? A tool's at its best only when you use it to the hilt. Once I'd advanced to the point of manufacturing fermented beverages, the rest came easy. We had brandy on hand as well as whiskey from applying distillation to the beer process. They were both high in alcohol, enough to burn the throat of someone not used to it, but an aficionado would definitely love how they tasted. I explained all this to Yom, showing him how to best enjoy it. My body no longer allowed me to get drunk, sadly, but the sensation was still nostalgic enough that I imagined I felt a tad tipsy regardless. Ha! I see. Yeah, this is pretty good, pal. Yeah, isn't it? Though, personally, I think I prefer putting ice right into the glass instead of just watering down this stuff. You're a man of good taste, Yom. Now that the tension had dissipated, I moved on to the main topic. So, I gave a broad, sketchy account of my adventures so far. This included my reincarnation and a lot of other details, but it was a toss-up whether he understood much of it. Which was fine. That's why I offered the drink first. It just wasn't the kind of tale you could convincingly tell stone-cold sober. If I was gonna go on about how I was chummy with demon lords and such, I had to do it with a smile and a wink. But Yom surprised me. Oh, I believe you, he said without prompting. I mean, monsters building an entire city? That's unthinkable enough right there. I'm glad he adapted so easily. He was taking to the brandy like a champ, too, delicately sipping it without hacking his lungs out. You believe all that? I just said I did, didn't I? Man, demon lords, though. I bet Caroline has some mean fighters working under him. Hard to say, actually. They aren't here to fight us. They're just coming to see if we're worth building diplomatic ties with. Yeah, but didn't you send Benimaru over there? You wanted him to be prepared for anything in that domain, didn't ya? I'll bet you they're thinking the same thing. I'd expect some fairly strong Magicborn if I were you. Maybe so, but I don't think it really matters. If we provoke him with a fight, it's over anyway. Getting all hostile with Caroline won't earn anything for us. So what I'm trying to tell you is this, like I said this afternoon, don't start any arguments with the envoys. And make sure your posse fully understands that, too. I want things to go a little more peacefully this time. You got it, pal. And like I told you, we ain't stupid enough to pick a fight with folks that dangerous. Yeah, I'll bet. He had convinced me enough that I dropped the topic. The brandy was a big success. I was sure it'd make an excellent gift on my trip to the Dwarven Kingdom. Yom and I wound up chit-chatting about far less important affairs well into the night. Several days later, right on time, the envoys from the Beast Kingdom of Eurazania arrived. I greeted them in my slime form with Shuna and Cheyenne behind me, along with Rigard and the other Hobgob bureaucrats. Then there was Soai, keeping tabs on things undercover. If something happened, I was sure he'd hop right out. Yom's group was there as well, and by their standards, they were acting downright somber. The envoys made their way through our ranks in a luxuriant line of gilded wagons. They were pulled by a streak of thunder tigers, large magical beasts crackling with lightning that ran across their frame, a potent symbol of military force, one easily visible from long distances. In terms of armor, these tiger wagons of sorts, if you took all the fancy gold and such off them, would probably work as tanks. Yep, this is sure a demon lord envoy, I marveled. Ah, it is nothing impressive, Cheyenne replied, shooting me down. Compared to the glorious light you bring us every day, Sir Rimuru, taming these beasts is nothing but a bluff. Cheyenne? It's gotta be more impressive than that, isn't it? They're clearly trying to demonstrate their power to us. You think all this dazzle is nothing impressive? You sure you aren't being too pretentious for your own good? 'Cause that ain't cool. You think? All those needless cosmetics would be meaningless in battle. But we're not in battle here, there's Cheyenne for you. Her mind never leaves the war zone. Dismissing what was likely Caroline's hand-picked battle lineup just because they weren't prepared for melee combat right this minute struck me as ridiculous. Of course, the artistry of all this decor could use some work. Nothing that Dold couldn't run laps around, plus, he's got Kaijin and Garm helping him out. We're really blessed with good talent that way. Thanks for saying so, boss. Makes us proud to hear. Kaijin and the three dwarf brothers appreciated the compliment, rewarding me with smiles. But I meant it. They had fulfilled all my crazy orders this entire time, and it had really been a huge help. I figured they could use some more recognition. The procession of tiger wagons continued solemnly forward as we spoke. The lead one was the most ostentatiously decorated of all, and when it came to a halt, two women emerged from the door. The first one had long, shiny white hair that was slick and straight. She was a beauty with a supple body and cat-like eyes, but the aura around her was ferocious, suggesting she was a battle-hardened leader. The second woman was just as head-turning, this one bewitching with her black angled hair and jewel-like snake eyes. She seemed graceful at first, but she practically froze the air with her cold-hearted gaze, repelling most who dared to approach her. They were both magic-born, and not the garden variety sort. The sheer quantity of magicules they held rivaled that of Phobio at his last visit. If I had to guess. A pleasure to meet you, Lord of the Great Forest of Jura. I am Alvis, the Golden Snakehorn and one of the three lycanthropers serving the demon Lord Caroline. I knew it. A real big shot. I wasn't expecting a top-level officer, but there you go. Which meant the other was oomph. I see no need to offer any formal greeting to this crowd, Alvis. After all these days of journeying, wondering what sort of monster might rule over Jura, I come here to find a puny slime to greet us? This is an outrage. Enough, Sufia. Such behavior brings nothing but disgrace to the face of Lord Caroline. Enough from you, Alvis. How dare you order me around? And look. They associate not only with dwarves but with humans, those stunted, conniving, cowardly humans. They are a disgrace to all the monster races. Whoever this magic-born Sophia was, she had a bone to pick with human beings. I intended to be patient as long as she kept the name-calling focused on me, but if that extended to humans, Yom and his cohorts, in this case I couldn't let it slide. Besides, I'm an ex-human myself. Yom, for his part, stayed silent for me, afraid of triggering a breakdown in relations before they even began. Good to see him living up to his word. Plus, looking back, his skills had grown immensely over the past few months. He had no obligation to put up with such a barrage of one-sided insults. He was being patient with them. I no longer could. Whoa there, don't you think you're picking on those humans a little too much? Knock it off, man. Right, Yom? I know you hate being treated like a fool. Why don't you show off some of your skills? You've got my permission. I mean, what do you want? Yom was, more or less, our friend, a devoted trainee of Hakuro's. Sure, he was on a different training regimen, and no way could he dream of taking on me or Rimuru. But he was so brazen, such a tenacious fighter, that he put up with Hakuro's gauntlet without a single complaint. He kind of reminded me of Tamura, this guy who worked under me at the office back in Japan. He was cocky, but I liked him just like I liked Yom, with his calling me pal and so on. And I guess he wasn't under me, exactly, more like an equal, a fellow student working under the tutelage of Hakuro. Seeing his good name so thoroughly trashed like this angered me more than it would if it had happened to me. I kind of understood how King Gazel felt. Ha! Me, the shocked Yom fired back at my tirade. What's he so surprised about? It's got everything to do with him, doesn't it? I want him to put on a little show for me. Yeah. I'll heal you as long as you don't die, so show him how strong you are. Whoa, pal. I thought we were keeping things nice and peaceful? Like, no starting fights? Shut up, fool. Quit playing dumb. I wasn't planning to start anything, but if they are, we gotta answer up to that. Exactly. If someone gives you a shove, you gotta shove them right back. Something else began to grab my attention. Yeah, go for it, boss. You'd look like an old fool if you don't get her back, sir. The assorted hoodlums and petty criminals in Yom's crew were raring for a brawl. Ha! Guess I've got no choice. Promise you'll look after my team, pal? With a grin, he unsheathed his beloved Dragon Slayer sword. My words had triggered something in him, igniting his lust for battle. No problem. I've got tons of healing potion, so don't let up. Sure thing. Yom took a step forward. Sophia answered this with a jubilant laugh. Hiya ha 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 ha. Well played, human. Think you can satisfy me? As I watched her gloriously overacted performance, Cheyenne handed me over to Shuna. Oh. Does she have ideas of her own? Just as the thought occurred to me, Cheyenne did exactly what I expected. Not so fast. I have stood here patiently and let you have your say, but the sheer brazenness of your insults toward Sir Rimuru. I have held my tongue for this long only because Sir Rimuru instructed me to, but it would appear I no longer have a need to. I shall be your opponent. Cheyenne's eyes grew bloodshot as she sprang into action. I was willing to let Yom join in on this, but Cheyenne's self-insertion was no longer a joke. Ah well. Not like I could stop her if I tried. I would just have to leave things to her now, and with such an eager opponent, now was no time to try to stop the bout. How neat. Sophia howled, her ferocious feline nature coming to the fore. I, Sophia, the snowy tiger claw, am ready and willing to test out these would-be minions of the high and mighty Slime Lord. Then she and Cheyenne clashed, driven purely by their war instincts. In an instant, the place turned into a battlefield. Yom, meanwhile. Oh dear. There is just no dealing with you, Sophia. In that case, Grusif. Provide an opponent for the human. To the side of Cheyenne and Sophia's duel, the golden snakehorn, Alvis, gently slipped an order to one of her magicborn. Me? Take on a human, sneered the gallant-looking young creature who stepped forward. I know I am a low-ranked member of the Beastmaster's Warrior Alliance, but... well, so be it. Let me be your playmate, human. His hair was gray, matching his eyes, and his skin was a dark shade of brown. He was as muscular as he was flexible, and the large knives he held danced in his hands while he glared sharply at Yom. This human was less than nothing to him, but his eyes were still focused, like a hunter steeling himself against their prey. Despite the insulting words, he was clearly not going easy. I should have expected nothing less of Carolan's servants. Say what you will about them, but they were first-class warriors. It was the lycanthrope races, I believe, that Carolan ruled over. Nalim had taught me a thing or two about them, hesitantly, at first, but the moment I dangled a few more of my sugary sweets over her head, she said, I shouldn't tell you, but I will, and then talked my ear off for the rest of the day about them. Lycanthropes were, as the name suggested, the family of demi-humans who could transform themselves into beasts. These chiefly encompassed dogs, cats, monkeys, bears, snakes, and birds. Larger species like elephants also existed but were rare. Lower-level monsters, like orcs and kobolds, were said to be devolved versions of these lycanthropes, no longer able to transform, which, in turn, suggested that these lycans were pretty upper tier as far as monsters went. If anything, having both human and monster-type powers from birth made it fair to call them low-level magic-born. Once a lycanthrope transformed, they would gain new abilities based on their unique characteristics. They were born soldiers, ready with battle skills from a young age, and even in this dog-eat-dog world, they were widely acknowledged as superior to the rabble in many ways. If I was to believe all this, then lycanthropes exhibited their true strengths only when transformed into the beast they were derived from. This suggested that, even if I didn't think these guys were just playing around, they weren't truly fighting just yet. Sophia was still in human form, just like Grusith. Could Cheyenne defeat her? Regardless, the two battles between Cheyenne and Sophia, and Yom and Grusith, were already underway. I watched from my safe spot nestled against Shuna's chest. In a word, the Cheyenne-Sophia bout was intense. They were both the type who derived joy from battle, true berserkers. Their surroundings no longer mattered as they immersed themselves in the fight. For now, they were equals in speed and strength, a very well-matched pair. From what I could tell, however, Sophia had a far vaster cache of magicules to draw from. As it was now, Cheyenne had a disadvantage, or should have. But she was grappling with Sophia with her massive sword still in its sheath. Was it because she didn't want to kill? Or just an expression that this wasn't everything she had? Not a very smart way to approach a higher-ranked magic-born, I thought. I hadn't expected Cheyenne to join the fray, but if she was going to, I really wanted her to give her all. Will Cheyenne be all right? She's fighting on her opponent's terms, not drawing her sword. She will be quite fine, Sir Rimuru. It may not seem so at the moment, but the only person stronger than her is my older brother. In Shuna's eyes, at least, Cheyenne was number 2 among the ogre mages. I was impressed she was able to grasp how they were fighting. Her own analysis unique skill was nothing to sniff at either. She must have seen how powerful Sophia was, but she seemed wholly unperturbed by that. A sign of trust, maybe? True, added Soai, lurking within my shadow. In full frontal combat like this, Cheyenne probably outclasses me, as much as I hate to admit it. I guess she was more than a barely qualified secretary, after all. We continued to watch as we spoke. Cheyenne and Sophia were entirely occupied by their combat, testing their skills and might against each other, attempting to gradually break out their full potential. It continued apace, remaining evenly matched to a surprising level. Yom's battle, meanwhile, was a showcase of advanced techniques being thrown against one another. He really had grown stronger. Several months have made him almost a different person, as he went on monster-slaying journeys between here and the towns and villages of Farmus, his home kingdom. It had built his name as a champion, and it had also earned him a bounty of experience. No doubt, he had been leveling up a ton. I'd have no problem giving him a solid A rank. The casual spectator could be forgiven for thinking he was just slashing his heavy Dragonslayer downward from the air, letting his brute strength win the day. But he wasn't. That attack was merely the first of a series of well-calculated moves. He waited for his foe to dodge it, putting him off guard just enough to raise his blade upward and connect it to a multi-level attack. He wielded the Dragonslayer like it was made of cardboard, his superhuman skills and strength keeping him in constant pursuit of his magic-born opponent. But Gruseth wasn't here to lose. He continually dodged the barrage of killer strikes from Yom's sword by a mere hairbreadth. The cleavers in his hands allowed him to unleash a flurry of quick combos, like a beautiful dance that effortlessly but inevitably cornered his enemy. You could tell he was supremely confident in his speed. Being faced with such a talented Magicborn didn't faze Yom. He smiled, obviously enjoying himself. Being able to fight a Magicborn who let him exercise all his powers allowed him to feel exactly how far he progressed. Attack followed parry, and parry followed attack, all mere instants from one another. Gruseth threw a knife at Yom easily avoided it, slamming his Dragonslayer down in a classic finisher move. But Gruseth lunged forward, tumbling to the ground to deflect the blow and slipping right between his legs. As Yom twirled around to pursue him, Gruseth's cleaver returned to him, spinning back to his hand like a boomerang. He crossed both blades in front of his chest, taking the full brunt of his adversary's gigantic blade. It was an even match, the kind of epic battle that makes one sigh in admiration. Yom's not too shabby, I remarked. He's fighting on an even keel with that Magicborn. Indeed, Shuna agreed, it is a remarkable effort. It was starting to look like Yom had advanced even further than I thought. It was like that with Datta, Kuro's instruction put speed above everything else. If your reaction time lagged even a little, you could expect some seriously painful retribution from him. Don't like it? Then pick yourself back up and work on your intuition skills. That, if anything, was the key to Yom's astonishing reaction speed. That and something else. There was a secret to the exo armor I gave him. It was noted for its lightweight and remarkable protective ability, but that wasn't all, it also assisted the wearer's movements, boosting their reflexes. Weapons and armor infused with magicules modified themselves based on how compatible they were with their owner. The more you use them, the better they'll become in your hands. His exo armor was no exception, and it was now fully used to Yom's battle style. It proved that, in several months of battle experience, he had made the exo armor something truly his own. These two factors were what gave Yom the strength to not only take on the Magicborn Gruseth but fight as his equal. The two bouts grew more and more intense. The attacks Cheyenne and Sufia exchanged were white-hot with intensity, as if they were each measuring how far the other would go. Ha ha ha. I was not expecting to have this much fun. Humph. Ridicule me at your peril, lycanthrope. Let me show you the sky-rending, earth-crushing power of an ogre mage. Ha 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 ha. Go right ahead. Make this even more exciting. The decisive moment was drawing near. Still laughing, Sufia slashed at Cheyenne with her long, extended claws. They glowed a pale white, unleashing electricity, the kind of ability you'd expect from someone who can tame thunder tigers, I suppose. Cheyenne was ready for this. Her sword still sheathed, she stopped the lightning-infused claws with her bare hands. The moment she did, bolts of electricity coursed across her body like a lightning rod. Her thick skin fully absorbed them, preventing any cuts or burns, and the current surged into the earth without seriously damaging her. Seeing this, Sufia hardened her gaze in reluctant admiration. Her foe had just used Diamond Path, one of the Ogre Mage's battle will skills. It let her control her mind and solidify her body, almost to the consistency of metal. Her fighting force protected her skin, dissipating any enemy attack. Not exactly entry-level stuff, it goes without saying, and Cheyenne executed it perfectly in battle, like an instructor schooling her opponent. Prepare yourself. It's my turn now, bring it on. My blood is on fire. After Sufia came Cheyenne, whether Sufia agreed to that or not. Cheyenne readied herself, still weaponless. Hakoro had been teaching us bare-handed martial arts, but nothing like this. It looked like she was about to launch a massive bolt of magic from her hands, focusing all her authoritative might on the effort. She devoted her entire half-crazed will to drumming up her aura, spreading it around her. If this was a Hakoro skill, it'd be a natural part of his in-combat repertoire, not this showy full-on blast that ran on every fiber of his being. Leave yourself that open in combat, and it'd just be giving your opponent a chance to strike. But Sophia merely stood there, arms open, as if it were a perfectly normal thing to do. I could never figure out what these battle-crazed maniacs would do next. Now Cheyenne was ready. To us in the audience, only a short time had passed. To the competitors, it would have been a fatal delay. One that Sophia had just spent standing there, smiling like she couldn't get enough. Cheyenne smiled back. Sorry for the wait. Now, take some of this. The aura that had winded its way around her hands formed a ball of fearsome, destructive energy, one that she was just about to launch. Enough. When a voice informed us all that the battle was over. A golden staff was suddenly thrust before Cheyenne. Alvis had stepped in. Her tail was pointed straight toward Sophia as well. She apparently had an energy bolt of her own to unleash. Alvis was, indeed, half human and half snake, her upper body an attractive woman, the lower half transformed into a large, ebony-colored reptile. This transformation into her beastly form had taken place without anyone noticing. Neither, it seemed, did her slipping between them attract anyone's attention until the moment she spoke. Not even I could fully block the aura I'd sensed before, and yet none of it exuded from her body. It was impressive. The three lycanthropers absolutely deserved the reputation they enjoyed. Hearing Alvis's shout, Ruseth immediately ceased all hostilities. Yom joined him, giving me a confused glance. I raised a hand and nodded at him. Is that enough for you? Should I take it to mean we've passed? Yes. You have certainly demonstrated your skills to us. Haven't they, Sophia? Are you willing to recognize them for who they are now? I am, she replied with a clear, cloudless smile on her face. No complaints here. They seem more than worthy of being treated as equals, that much I firmly believe now. She turned to the other lycanthropes in their entourage. I trust they have convinced you as well? I will not allow any of you to complain about them and their humanness any longer. Ruseth nodded. Right you are, Lady Sophia. Rare are the humans who can fight with me on such an advanced level. Pay these people the respect they deserve. He let out a loud, hearty laugh, then extended a hand to Yom. His opponent accepted it with a wry grin, and at that moment, everything was resolved. Alvis's actions just now confirmed it to me. I had been right about their motivations. They were testing us, deliberately greeting us with hostility to gauge our reaction. I began to suspect as much when Sophia started giving me guff for being a slime. Carolon, her direct boss, already knew who, or what, I was. He had talked with most of my monster officials, and he had already sworn to me, by his own name, even, that he'd work on friendly terms with us. It seemed unlikely that he'd instruct his representatives to start picking on my sliminess all of a sudden. Sophia, I could tell, was just using me as a way to provoke us all into action. She must have thought at least one of us would go berserk when she started berating their master. I also had another reason to suspect their behavior. They were, in a way, revealing a lot about themselves, amid all that huffing and puffing. Take their nicknames. Alvis referred to herself as the Golden Snakehorn, and now I could tell that was a pretty literal way of putting it. Snake on the bottom, two sparkling gold horns coming out of her head, branching out like those of a dragon and suggesting all manner of untold secrets. Sophia, for her part, was the snowy tiger claw, which suggested something feline about her transformation. She used claws charged with electricity during the fight, so it made sense. Phobio, the black leopard fawn, presumably excelled at using his long, sharp fangs in combat. Or maybe he had some dark weapon modeled after a black fawn. Who knows? Regardless, it all meant that lycanthropes were remarkably honest with their opponents, using their nicknames to reveal the sorts of abilities they'd really be better off hiding from foes. I guess you could say they were proud of keeping things fair and square in the ring, and there was no way they'd defy the orders of their master, the Demon Lord. Lucky for me that both my hunches turned out to be correct. That left one more group to handle. Are you all right with that, Cheyenne? There was still a gigantic ball of pure magic hovering above Cheyenne's outstretched hands. She looked at me, troubled. It is not a problem for me, Sir Rimuru, but what should I do with this? This meaning the ball, I assumed. You can't banish it? I can't. Or I should say, my magical force is at its limits. Looking closely, I could see Cheyenne's entire body starting to quiver. She looked ready to unleash the time bomb of a magic bolt at any moment. There were tears in her eyes. She wasn't lying, something everyone else could tell, too, judging by how they were suddenly keeping their distance. The most panicked of all about it, of course, was the ball's target. "Whoa, calm down." Slowly pointed upward. Alvis had already put her staff away and wasted no time sprinting, or more accurately, slithering out of there. Sophia had tried to edge back herself, but the high-voltage electricity zapping to and fro between her and Cheyenne made it impossible. The lightning infused in Sophia's body was reacting with Cheyenne's own aura, creating a sort of energy field that both had trouble escaping. "Come on. Put your heart into it." This ball was putting the fear of God into Sophia. I could tell by the way she shouted at Cheyenne at the top of her lungs. "I swear, there's just nothing I can do about her." Condensing all that power into a ball so tightly wound, not even she could control it. Jumping out from Shuna's arms, I nimbly maneuvered in front of Cheyenne, going into human mode and pointing my left hand at her. "Cheyenne, fire it." "But, it's all right. Trust me." "Why, yes, sir," she warbled, confused. But she was already at the end of her rope. The vast ball of magic unfurled itself, then, leaving just a short afterglow, was absorbed into me. The unique skill glutton in action, once more. This utterly shocked the lycanthropes as much as it relieved Cheyenne, who fell to the ground exhausted. Cheers erupted around us as peace finally returned to the battlefield. As I guided Carolan's officers around, I decided to ask a question that had been weighing on my mind for a bit. "Say, what were you intending to do if we didn't take you up on your little challenge?" "That would have been trouble for us, yes, but if you were the sorts of cowards who couldn't even fight us, we'd have no reason to recognize you as friends. We would have called everything off, I imagine, and I am sure Lord Carolan would have completely understood." Talk about an open book. No ulterior motives with these guys at all. I was starting to think we'd get along pretty darn well in our exchanges. It certainly cheered me up to think that. We held a welcoming feast for them that evening. Shuna was putting all her efforts into cooking for it, and I could hardly wait for night to fall. We were cracking open all the alcohol we had, too. Once all the dishes were laid out, the party began. Datta, fresh from patrol duty, did a funny little dance, provoking raucous laughter. Hakuro provided a more serious demonstration of his sword skills, earning him the respect of the lycanthropes in the audience. The dwarves all tried their hand-wooing Shuna, only to be shot down one by one. It goes without saying they proceeded right to drowning their sorrows after that. Yom and his men, meanwhile, were already at the gambling table. I had taken to propagating the game of mahjong around town as a way to kill time, and the magic-born Grusith, fresh from fighting my champion, was joining the match out of curiosity. I wanted to hop in myself, but Shuna stopped me. "Sir Rimuru," she angrily intoned, "you know you don't have a good mind for gambling." She had me there, I have to admit. Whenever I get really passionate about something, I get too reckless for my own good. I could have the sage advise there is a 99% chance the south player is waiting to snatch that tile if you play it in my mind, but it'd toss it in anyway. I'm a man. I'd reason. Screw the percentages. I gotta push through. And I'd pay for it every time. An all too common story, loving a hobby, even when you suck at it. You'd think I would be smart enough to rely on the great sage to sail me to victory every time. If you don't keep a cool head when gambling, you're bound to lose big. I know that, but I can't stop. Happens every time. Tonight, at least, my main responsibility was to be an amiable host. Best heed Shuna's advice and provide someone for the lichens to talk to. So I turned to Alvis and Sophia, only to be greeted with two utterly sloshed beasts. Their attendants were urging them to stop, but they had no interest in listening. Alvis had her tail wrapped around a barrel, dunking her head in to drink mouthfuls at a time. This was apple brandy, sweet and mellow but definitely strong stuff. I had been planning to save it for a more refined tasting session later, given its premium quality. Who the hell gave her the whole barrel? I whined to myself as I turned my eyes to her drinking companion. There I found, to be as succinct as possible, a large white tiger. Not a metaphor. It wasn't some half-creature, but Sufia in full animal form, lapping eagerly away at some mead from one of our large drinking cups. This is going nowhere, I thought. There were 10 or so empty barrels casually discarded next to her, which made it simple to calculate just how much they had drunk. But that didn't matter. The honey wasn't the primo stuff I had a pedo harvest for us, we just used honey picked up from a giant honeybee nest. Being all natural ingredients, we didn't have a lot of it, but there was always more available. The issue here, for them more than me, maybe was these two lycanthropes revealing their full, true selves, something I imagined was better off hidden. Hey, I asked in a panic, do you think you should be showing your transformation around other people so much? Malim had shared her own observations of these lichens to me, so I was pretty sure of the answer. I was quickly proven wrong. Ah, Sir Rimuru, I am sorry you have to see this embarrassing state of affairs. The meek young lycanthrope who answered was named Enryo, a close confidant of Phobio, who had come on this journey to offer me his thanks. Enryo had bowed his head deeply to me multiple times, singing my praises to the high heavens for retrieving Phobio alive from the massive thing that took him. Indeed, he continued, we lycanthropes vary in the forms and styles our transformations take. There is no law that says we must not show them, but, certainly, we do not often reveal them to others, except those whom we fully trust. This was even more detailed than what Malim had offered. Whoa, you sure that's not classified lycanthrope information or something? No, nothing like that. It's no great secret to speak of. Any upper-level magic-born would be aware of it. Besides, he laughed, we never were very good at keeping secrets. He seemed truthful enough to me. Which meant, crap, Malim tricked me, didn't she? It was no big deal, but she acted like she was imparting the great secrets of the world when she started blabbing. She cheated those sweets from me, plain and simple. I thought I was pulling the wool over her eyes, but she was one step ahead of me. Better keep my guard up more, I thought. I had the lycanthropes brought into their rooms, each furnished with full barrels of their own. Whether it was a secret or not, I still felt a bit squeamish about the females exposing themselves in public at my party, and I wanted to show a little hospitality to the rest of the gang, too. The event ended without a hitch, and the next morning, the two beauties arrived at the breakfast table looking incredibly refreshed. Not even a little bit hungover. There ain't a creature in the world they can't drink under the table, I mused. Ah, Alvis began, last night was like a dream. Such a wonderful welcome. I cannot wait to tell my master all about this excitement. Ooh, I've never had such pleasant drink before. Simply learning such a thing exists makes me confident we are right to build relations with your land. Oh, Sophia, stop being so uncouth. I will admit, though, it was quite pleasant on the tongue. I don't recall tasting anything so strong in my life. The dinner itself was wonderful as well, of course, but that liquor, my booze wowed them both, far more than Shuna's food. As we spoke, the topic turned toward our issues with fruit, and our inability to find enough people to cultivate them and make larger harvests. By this point, our food situation had undergone some major improvement, but our focus was still on growing things like wheat and barley, not to mention potatoes, which formed a very effective side dish. We were experimenting with rice plant cultivation as well, with an eye toward crafting a rice grain palatable to us all. Fuse and his men had told me they weren't aware of anywhere in the land that raised rice in an agricultural environment, so we'd have to build all that from scratch. Once we reached our goal, I was planning to turn some of our wheat fields into rice paddies and ramp ourselves up into full production. It should be noted that I wasn't focused on rice for purely selfish reasons. It's an incredibly nutritious staple, and mixing it with wheat would improve the balance of our food supply. I knew now that flesh and blood monsters weren't constructed much differently from humans, so I wanted to keep our food production as balanced as I could. Having rice also meant we could make rice wine or sake in large quantities, so I'll admit to having that little dream in mind. Between this, that, and the other thing, growing fruit had fallen on the back burner. There just was no time to develop new farmland for it. Our construction schedule was packed to the gills. I was already asking Geld for too much. I wanted the sweetness fruit would bring to our diet, but we couldn't ask for such luxuries until we were more fully prepared for future famines. Thus, I had given up on it for now. And with that, I finished giving them the rundown. I see, Alvis remarked. That does sound like an issue. Perhaps I could arrange matters so the fruits offered to Eurazania are passed over to your nation? With that, you could use that to make more fancy liquor for us, I could practically hear her say between the lines. What percentages are we talking? I asked. Oh, you can handle the details, Sophia fired back with a smile. As long as I have something good to drink, I am satisfied. Our Lord's domain enjoys a great deal of high-quality fruit, so I do look forward to what you could make with it. So the ball was back in our court. Which I was glad for, since I was in no position to give out numbers right now anyway. Even if they just wanted a supply for themselves, not to sell across the land, transporting such a huge amount of liquor was a logistics issue I didn't want to think about. It'd be nice if we could get a monetary system in place already, so I wouldn't have to sweat the details on every single barter we worked out. But even if the Beast Kingdom understood the concept, I doubted they would see any need for it. What a pain, though. Then I remembered I had experts in that sort of issue, didn't I? The kobold merchants I had come to name their leader Kobe, for simplicity's sake, mentioned they plied their trade all over Carolon's domain. They'd be good folks to bring up the topic with. No time to waste. Let's get him over here right now. Kobe was usually stationed at the merchant's office in the city of Tempest, so he came right over upon my summons. Sir Rimuru, what is the... Right, so Kobe here's gonna send a team of kobold merchants to pick up the fruit, so make sure they've got permission to travel through your lands. Excellent, Sophia said. I shall guarantee their safety in Eurazania. What? And Lady Lycanthroper? Great, thanks. Oh, and if there's anything besides our beverages that strikes your fancy, we'll be glad to sell it to you. What do you think? In that case, Alvis interjected, waiting for this moment, I do have something in mind. The clothing you all wear is made of very fine cloth. The bedding I enjoyed last night was of a similar quality, it felt so smooth against my skin. I absolutely loved it. If we might be able to discuss that, we had just recently perfected the mass production of magical silk from Hellmoth cocoons, and it looked like it had gained a few ardent fans. We gave them a couple yards of fabric, their eyes gleaming as they examined it. Please, by all means, then. It was not only pretty and soft to the touch, but it was also made of rather protective material. I wasn't about to give permission that readily, but then, this was a negotiation. So I guess they need some of this, Kobe. As beautiful as they are, it's no wonder these fine women have such good taste in fabric. And no, please, wait just a moment, sir. What is the meaning of? Yep. Just like Kobe said, this is one of my nation's specialties. Both rare and quite valuable. Would you have some product of your own that would provide a worthy exchange? I was willing to part with a suitable amount of booze and just a bit of Hellmoth fabric for the fruit supply. But I didn't want to fold that easily. Someone as on the ball as Kobe would immediately see the benefits of this, no doubt. Well, Alvis said, about all we can offer you right now are these decorative stones. She pointed to a small collection of stones that shone a dazzling array of colors. They resembled the magic crystals dwarves could refine from magical ore, but it couldn't have been that, it wasn't dark in color, for one. I picked one up and ran analyze and assess on it. It came back as a gemstone, which shouldn't have surprised me. I guess this world had gems in it, too. A jewel, eh? I was hoping for some gold, personally, sir. Sir Rimuru, these are lycanthropers you are gold? We got that, right, Alvis? We do, yes, locked in our storage rooms. We have little use for what is offered to us, apart from decorating our palace. Could I ask you for that? There were tons of uses for gold. Decor, yes, but hell, we could just ferry that stuff right to the Dwarven Kingdom to feed their mint, for example. Kobe seemed just as excited about that, hopefully he was happier with this exchange now. He was wagging his tail to and fro, so I knew he was eager to lunge at the opportunity. Hang in there, Kobe. This is gonna be a big job for you guys. But please, Sir Rimuru. This is too big a job. his shout echoed across the chamber. I brushed it off with a laugh. Kobe soon grew quiet, perhaps resigned to his fate. He realized this was all decided upon, and now he was ready to be a little forward-thinking about it. The classic merchant, everything's flexible with him. We quickly moved on to the smaller details. These were matters that the Leakin officers here preferred to leave to their attendants. The magic-born Enryo would be handling them. Kobe, once he finally grew serious about this and acted like the merchant he was, soon threw himself headlong into negotiations. We took a whiff of the roasted tea Shuna made for us as she did. Unbeknownst to me, it turned out that kobold merchants technically weren't allowed to enter the beast kingdom of Eurazania. Not just kobolds, either, but the domain was known as a place of great trial upon its people, especially the weak. Every inch of land the demon Lord Carolan ruled over was obliged to provide its assorted bounties to the main government. This meant the central lands of the domain took it as a given that it received anything it could possibly want. The kobold merchants, in turn, would travel around the towns and villages ruled by the central forces, picking up any necessities they required. If this new agreement meant the kobolds went from bottom feeders to a full-fledged merchant class in Carolan's eyes, no wonder Kobe's head was about to explode. It was the same case, more or less, in the other demon lord domains. With the winged nation of Fulbrosia, land of Fry, the Sky Queen Pion-level monsters wouldn't be allowed in the cities to start with, not unless they bore wings themselves. Rumor had it the city space was formed in layers carved into a mountain range, climbing its way to the very heavens. As someone who used to work in construction, I'd love to check that out sometime, but it didn't sound like permission would come too easily. Doing business with Milim's domain was a bit impractical, given how far away it was from us. That left the demon Lord Clayman, the marionette master himself. He was the exception among his kin, allowing free and legal commerce across all his lands. The economy was a pressing concern for him, and his domain had a working monetary system in operation. There were stories about them trading with the Eastern Empire, even. He struck me as a very refined thinker by this world's standards. Then again, if the nearby demon lords could be trusted, Clayman was about the only one among them who could engineer something like that orc lord. The only one with the financial clout to outfit a horde that size with weapons and armor, as they put it. But there was no concrete evidence, and I couldn't deny that human hands seemed to be involved as well. The question would have to be addressed later. I discussed all this with Alvis and Sufia over tea. As we did, our respective underlings wrapped up their own negotiations. Sir Rimuru, I must admit that I, your humble servant Kobe, cannot thank you enough. To a band of itinerant merchants such as ourselves, the chance to receive a job of such enormity is so, he looked about ready to cry as he took a knee before me, tail whipping back and forth so rapidly I was afraid it'd rip off his body. Hey, anytime, Kobe. Good luck with it. It's sadly gonna be a while before we can complete a road, I imagine, so transport's gonna be rough going to start with. In addition to preparing a highway to the Dwarven Kingdom, I was having Geld work on a similar path to the Kingdom of Bloomond. Asking any more of him would be too much on his plate. Not a problem, sir. This is where we come in. Kobe dispelled my worries with a smile. Despite his dog-like face, I could tell from the aura of joy he emitted that he was really smiling. They were used to peddling their wares along marginal roads, travel conditions didn't seem to concern them much. Will you have enough people? I thought to ask, though it was a bit late to turn back now. That will not be a problem, either, Sir Rimuru. Thanks to you permitting us to build a base of operations in this town, our business has been proceeding along quite smoothly in the forest of Jura. We have ample personnel for the job, I believe. Ah. Well, great. We'll just provide your guard escort, then. Thank you very much. That will help us greatly. He gave me a resolute look, eyes narrowed, then scampered back to his office. This new client of his had filled him with an all-encompassing desire to get the job done. Which was great, really great. We could have just used teleports, at least with the quantity of goods we were talking, but that had its limits and only worked with pre-decided amounts. If this was just a small gift exchange now and again, that'd be one thing, but physical transport would be the name of the game with this job. If we didn't get down to brass tacks on goods and equivalent values right now, it could lead to trouble later. I wanted to be sure I had someone trustworthy in the mix first thing, and for that purpose, the kobolds and their long relationships with our goblins were a more than capable partner. I couldn't ask for a better one, in fact. This all put my mind tremendously at ease, free of the pains of bartering by myself. It also marked the beginning of official trade relations between Tempest and Eurasania. After staying on for several more days, the lycanthropers Sufia and Elvis headed back home. Enrio, the magic-born serving them, remained in town with the other attendants. They had apparently been instructed to learn about the assorted technology we enjoyed here, and they were already beavering away at their studies. Kaijin and the dwarf brothers' workshop wowed them. When they visited one of our new construction sites, they assiduously took measurements of the framework's strength and stability. On a day trip to see our highways, they were shocked to see how effective our building crews were. Soon, they wanted to get to grips with this stuff themselves. If you are willing, they asked, we would be delighted to work with your teams. They weren't beholden to any particular schedule but wanted to stay on hand until replacements arrived for them. After discussing matters with Rigard, I decided to give them my permission. Before a month had passed, they were fully part of our work operation, far more serious-minded and good-natured than I gave them credit for. One of the lycanthropes was involved with other business. That was Grusif. Enrio and the others were ordered to polish their technical knowledge here, but not Grusif. While my master, Phobio the Black Leopard Fawn, is serving his penance, I was ordered to provide whatever aid I could to you, Sir Rimuru. I am hoping I could return the favor, in some way. Thus, he agreed to help patrol the city, although between him doing ride-alongs with Gopta and training with Akuro alongside Yom, it seemed to me he was just doing whatever he felt like around town. Ah well. If he was having fun, it was no skin off my nose. And so, the envoys sent from the Beast Kingdom of Eurasania shortly found themselves naturally becoming friends of the citizens of Tempest.